The Las Vegas Raiders released their first depth chart of 2026 on Monday, and it contradicted almost everything Raider Nation has watched at training camp for the last 3 weeks. The receiver everyone in Henderson is talking about is listed behind a player who caught 20 passes all of last season. The safety taking first-team reps in the secondary is listed as a backup. Coaching staffs review these charts before they go public, which means every line is a decision somebody signed off on. One of those lines involves a rookie who has become the favorite target of the #1 overall pick, and that connection started nowhere near a practice field. This is a franchise that finished 3-14, fired its head coach after 1 season, and then spent more salary cap space than any team in football. John Spytek gave 3-time Pro Bowl center Tyler Linderbaum a 3-year contract worth $81 million with $60 million guaranteed. He signed linebackers Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean on the same afternoon for a combined $76.5 million. He added Kirk Cousins on a 1-year deal worth $11.3 million fully guaranteed. And none of that was the biggest move this front office made in 2026. The biggest move never actually happened. The defense changed shape completely under coordinator Rob Leonard, who is running a 3-4 front with Max Crosby and Kwity Paye rushing off the edges. Second-year defensive tackle Tonka Hemingway is listed as a full starter next to Adam Butler, which almost nobody predicted in March. Las Vegas has not won the AFC West in 23 years and has not reached the playoffs in 4. Odds makers set the win total for this team at 5.5 games, and that number tells you exactly how little of the league believes anything here has changed. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Raiders and all the NFL content. Can we get 250 likes on this video? Start with the record, because the record lies a little. The Raiders went 3-14 in 2025 and earned the #1 overall pick, and most people stop reading right there. The more useful numbers sit underneath it. Las Vegas finished dead last in the National Football League at 14.1 points per game and dead last at 245.2 total yards per game. Not near the bottom. Last in both. Run the arithmetic out loud, because it reframes the whole season. At 14.1 points per game across 17 games, the Raiders scored roughly 240 points all year. Add a single touchdown per game to that average, and the total climbs to about 359 points, which is an entirely different football team and probably a 7 or 8 win team. The gap between the worst offense in football and a competent one was 1 score a week. That is not a rebuild. That is a repair job. 3 things broke at the same time, and it is worth counting them properly. The quarterback position collapsed, with Geno Smith throwing a league-high 17 interceptions. The play calling changed mid-season when offensive coordinator Chip Kelly was fired and Greg Olsen took over as interim. And the offensive line failed the run game so badly that Ashton Jeanty, the 6th overall pick, averaged only 1.6 yards before first contact. Jeanty still led every rookie in football with 975 rushing yards, which tells you how much of that was not his fault. Now walk the season chronologically, because the shape of it matters more than the final record. Week 1 was a 20-13 win over New England, and for about 50 minutes, it looked like the Pete Carroll era might work. Brock Bowers caught 5 passes for 103 yards in that game. Late in the fourth quarter, he came off the field with a knee injury that ESPN's Adam Schefter later reported as a posterior cruciate ligament injury and a bone bruise in his left knee. Bowers played through it for 3 more games, then missed 3 games entirely. His return in Week 9 against Jacksonville was the single best offensive performance the Raiders produced all year, with 12 catches on 13 targets for 127 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 30-29 overtime loss. He finished the season with 64 receptions for 680 yards and 7 touchdowns in 12 games, made his 2nd straight Pro Bowl, and was placed on injured reserve on Christmas Eve. Let me be fair here. Those are good numbers for a player who was never healthy. The middle of that season is where it fell apart. Las Vegas lost 8 games in a row, a stretch that included a 31-0 loss in Philadelphia in Week 15, where the entire offense produced 75 total yards. The Raiders then beat Kansas City in Week 18, which cost them nothing because the number 1 pick was already secured. Mark Davis fired Carroll the next morning. That single Sunday is the reason Fernando Mendoza is standing at Allegiant Stadium this week. Here is the part of the depth chart nobody is talking about, and it has nothing to do with the quarterbacks. Tonka Hemingway was a 4th-round pick out of South Carolina in 2025 who barely registered as a rookie. He finished last season strong, spent the offseason living in the weight room, and he is now listed as a starting defensive tackle at 6'2" and 284 pounds. Jonah Laulu and Thomas Booker IV are the next men up. A 4th-round pick beating out that rotation is the quietest good news on this roster. The loudest bad news is 20 yards behind him. Isaiah Pola-Mao played 1,081 defensive snaps at free safety in 2025 and was targeted 57 times in coverage. He allowed 38 completions, 582 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. Pair that with strong safety Jeremy Chin, who led the team with 114 tackles but also gave up his share, and the 2 Raiders safeties allowed 10 touchdowns in coverage between them. Pro Football Focus also charged Pola-Mao with 35 missed tackles across the last 2 seasons. Which brings us to the strangest line on the entire chart. Trayden Stukes, the 2nd-round pick out of Arizona who ran an official 4.33 40-yard dash at the Combine, has been taking first-team reps in the secondary all week, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He is still listed as the backup free safety. The chart says the incumbent has the job. The practice field has been saying something different for about 10 days now, and the preseason opener is where those 2 stories stop being able to coexist. Here's the draft class, and the pick count matters. The Raiders made 10 selections in April, more than almost anybody. It started with Fernando Mendoza at number 1 overall out of Indiana, a Heisman Trophy winner who completed 72% of his passes for 3,535 yards and 41 touchdowns, while going 16-0 and winning a national championship. He signed a rookie contract worth roughly $57 million. Per Pro Football Focus, he threw 39 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in the red zone since 2024. Narrow the rest of it down honestly, because 10 picks does not mean 10 contributors. Stukes went 38th, and Kieran Crawford went 67th. Guard Trezun III came off the board at pick 91 and has since played every position on the offensive line, including second-team center this week. Cornerback Jermod McCoy went 101st out of Tennessee, a projected first-round talent who fell after tearing his right ACL. Running back Mike Washington Jr. went 122nd out of Arkansas after a 1,070-yard season. Safety Dalton Johnson followed at pick 150, and cornerback Hezekiah Masses came off the board at pick 175. And then the Raiders spent pick 195 on the receiver who has stolen this entire training camp. Malik Benson led Oregon with 716 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns on 43 catches last season, then ran a 4.37 40-yard dash at the Combine. He said this week that he and Mendoza have felt a connection since they met there, months before either one signed. Every practice report since has confirmed it. Jack Besh, the player listed ahead of him, put it plainly. Malik has been great. He is super fast. A 6th-round pick is now the second unit's primary target. Now put this roster in its actual division, because the AFC West is not great on effort. The Raiders open at home against Miami on September 13, then travel to the Los Angeles Chargers in Week 2 and host Kansas City in Week 4. ESPN charted this as the 7th hardest schedule in the league, with 2026 opponents having posted a .529 winning percentage last season. There is no soft landing anywhere in the first month. The road history inside the division is the real problem. Las Vegas has not won a game in Denver since 2022. Against the Chargers in Los Angeles, the Raiders are 2-9 all-time at SoFi Stadium and have not won there since 2020. Both of those teams are projected to compete for the AFC again. 6 division games against Kansas City. Denver and Los Angeles will decide whether Clint Kubiak gets to call this a successful first year or a familiar one. The schedule does hand Las Vegas one genuine advantage. The toughest non-division opponents on the slate, Seattle, the Los Angeles Rams, and Buffalo, all come to Allegiant Stadium. The Raiders host 8 games total. In the December home, dates against the Chargers and the Broncos land after a Week 13 bye. If this team is still alive in December, the calendar is built for a run. That is a large if, and it depends entirely on a player who came within one physical of never wearing this uniform again. That brings us to March, and to the story that should have ended the Max Crosby era in Las Vegas. On March 6th, the Raiders agreed to trade Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens in exchange for the 14th overall pick in the 2026 draft and a first-round pick in 2027. Adam Schefter reported it that night. Crosby posted an emotional farewell video to Raider Nation the next day, spent the weekend believing he was a Raven, and flew to Baltimore for his physical on Monday. On Tuesday night, the Raiders released a statement saying Baltimore had backed out of the trade agreement. League sources told ESPN the Ravens rescinded it over medical concerns that surfaced during that physical. 13 hours later, Baltimore agreed to a 4-year contract worth $112 million with Trey Hendrickson instead. Crosby flew home, posted 3 words on social media, and remained a Raider. I have covered a lot of transactions on this channel. I have never seen one collapse quite like that. Understand what he was playing through when this started. Las Vegas placed Crosby on injured reserve for the final 2 games of 2025, while the number 1 overall pick was still on the line. A decision that frustrated him publicly. He had surgery in January to repair a torn meniscus in his left knee. He still finished 2025 with 73 tackles, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. He is 28 years old. He has played 110 career games with 8 surgeries behind him, and on Tuesday night, he was on the field at Allegiant Stadium knocking the ball out of Dylan Liu's hands in a drill. So rank what actually matters for this season, because not all of these questions carry the same weight. The offensive line is first, because Linderbaum was signed to fix the exact problem that ruined Jenny's rookie year. The free safety job is second, the pass rush is third, and it is the least of the worries. Kubiak was clear before the Allegiant session about what he wanted from it. Tonight's really important. He was talking about headset communication in dress rehearsal, and that is the level of detail this building has been missing. Stack the conditions, and the season writes itself. If the line holds, Genty clears 1,200 rushing yards. If Genty clears 1,200, Cousins gets play action, and Bowers gets single coverage. If Bowers gets single coverage, this offense climbs from 32nd in scoring into the middle of the league, and 8 or 9 wins is on the table instead of 5.5. The biggest variable is not the quarterback competition. It is whether Clint Kubiak can do in Las Vegas what he did in Seattle, where his offense ranked 3rd in the National Football League at 28.4 points per game and won Super Bowl LX. Here is my call, and I want yours. This team goes 8-9, misses the playoffs by 1 game, and Fernando Mendoza starts before Thanksgiving, whether the depth chart says so today or not. SpyTech told JT the Brick this spring, when you need to be aggressive, you have to go for it. He went for it. Drop your record prediction in the comments and hit subscribe, because the preseason opener against Arizona on Thursday is the first real evidence any of us get, and I will have the full breakdown of what the starters actually showed the moment that tape is available.